this will be how to build a EZGO TXT into a gas cart. Pretty much the most straightforward you can be in a cart. I've built other carts, and this is ideally what you want if you're new or you're not good at fabricating, you don't want to get as much involved. You want it kind of as straightforward as it can be. First thing to check, well, I got this as an EZGO, as an electric frame, and I swapped over some of my things. I had gas and whatever. I'm pretty much in this cart almost nothing. I mean, I bought that mat for like 70 bucks. That's about it. I bought the button and the key switch on the clutch. Pretty much everything else was free. I bought some ends for these cables. Pretty much everything else was free. Stuff my work was thrown away. Even the engine. Customer thought it had no compression. We're like, okay, you don't want it? We're like, nope, it's garbage. And then just had the butterfly and the carb was locked up. New carb, good to go. So your first thing to check, this is the diff for your earlier models. It'll have the clutch on driver's side. Your shifter is right there. That's what the normal shifter looks like. It's pretty hard to actually find the shifter, but there's other things you can do, different ones, to make it work. It just pulls side to side there, 2 cables. This cart, I don't think I mentioned it yet, but you could actually buy kits on, I think they call it Vegas carts, something like that. But they sell kits with trays, and I think there's kits to adapt a starter generator, which would make it a pedal start cart. You gotta think what you're looking for. Pedal start is pretty nice. This is a key start, push button start. You want to be technical. This is probably about as clean standard install you can do. Minimal wires. I took all the wires, wired it from scratch. You run into more issues on a club car versus EZGO. Like I did a lot of fabricating. I posted another video of my club car I just did, in the progress, almost done. But like things like your engine will sit much better under your seat, or you can have your gas tank here, just use your gravity feed. Your diff wants to turn the correct way as a Predator, counterclockwise, which some of your older club cars, it'll have the clutch over there and it wants to turn the other way, so you're slow forward, fast backwards. So you'd have to adapt something. Also note, you could use an electric rear end, but you're not going to have reverse because it's in the diff in an electric car. You could make it work, like a reversing gearbox or other things you could do, but ideally set up like this is your much more standard cart. I think I said you could buy kits from Vegas carts, but I don't really do any of that. I got a lot of scrap metal laying around and things. I fabricate, so I've made my own tray. Just welded to a bracket there, and then use the clamp. Bars crossing over through the middle, through there, and then heim joints in the front so it can pivot, because it needs to pivot with the suspension, and heim joint will let it rotate some. I don't know if I should go into full like wiring and everything. I got this tray for just like $7 on Amazon. It's nice to hold your battery down. Self tappers into the base and clamp on the top. It's also nice when you use this is a Predator 420. When you do this setup, your battery's dead, you can still pull start it, which I just did that. I just swapped the battery with the car because my battery's dead, but yesterday I was running it pull start I don't know if I should get into the wiring at all, but I guess we'll say, so your pedal, this is actually, I had another cart that came with this diff and this pedal. Pretty much everything else sucked, so I used that original gas things to make this one gas, and then I converted that one to electric. Your gas pedal has a little arm in there that'll pull your cable, which I think it goes that way, one other way, I don't know. But basically you need your cable to be pulled somehow. Actually, before I started working on golf carts, I had one that I made gas with an electric cart, and I went under the front, I believe, and I mounted it somewhere in here where the throttle turns. I think I put it somewhere like on the block up here or something, but you could just, then held it somewhere back, just somewhere you need to pull a throttle cable, obviously. If you really wanted to, I guess you could buy a go-kart pedal and adapt that. But to get into wiring, I don't know if I should make a full video just wiring a Predator from scratch, but they're not very clear on the internet, some things. I'll go over it a little bit here. So you have this wire at the top, goes into your engine. That's on your coil for your spark. And you put negative to that wire and it'll kill it, your spark. So you want to run that wire up to, I have this key switch. It's a 2-position switch for, I believe it's a 4-wheeler key switch or something. But Amazon typically, I believe, let's see, 6 pins. You'd want a 6-pin switch, and then I have a push button here where I turn it on. See the light lights up. It's pretty bright, but I wired, so you'll have continuity. You put your meter to ohms, looks like a horseshoe, and put it on 2 pins there. The 2 that have continuity when it's off, that is going to be your ground circuit for your ignition coil here that we're talking about. So you would want negative from your battery up here, negative. If there's a light bulb in here, it'll want a negative. Just tee it into one of those pins that you have continuity when it's off here. So the negatives coming from the battery to each side, each of those, the button and the switch. And then the continuity, you could check voltage here too, but you'd have to have it connected, you know. But the other wire you had continuity with when it's off, you would wire that down to this wire here to kill your ignition when your key is off. So that'll turn your cart off. Otherwise, it's just going to keep running and running. This can run without a battery, so it'll just keep running until it loses spark, loses fuel, or you smother your air. Different things you can do. And then you have battery positive. You want to run a large cable to your large post on your solenoid. You could tee off a small wire from that spot, because that and there is the same thing. Whatever way you want to do it cleaner, take it that way. I think I have a fuse on it there. Ran it off positive up to your switch, and you feed what I did. There'll be continuity for 2 different pins in the first position. Is then run your positive to one of those pins, and then the other wire that had continuity, you run that out to this switch, and then that'll light that up, and and then when you push the button, there's continuity to a third wire. That wire will come down here, and then there's a little spade terminal. Little spade terminal here, right there. The spade terminal on the solenoid. That is your crank. So, power to your key switch, over to your button, out to make it crank. Obviously, you need your engine grounded, because this all uses an engine ground, which mounting it to your frame and ground your battery to your frame might be sufficient enough, but I ran it straight to the engine. Give it a little better connection and be sure it's not on something painted or whatever. Let it travel there good. And see what else. And then my next position on my switch, I ran 12 volts up. I believe just used a different wire just to have a different fuse, or I had a harness. It was a light kit, so there was a different harness here. Technically, you could run it off the same 12 volts. Your next position has continuity 2 wires. What I did, I use that for my lights, which is your standard EZGO type thing. And so that'll be my lights. So bright you can't see anything right now. I don't even know if this battery's dead. I just threw it in. I don't know. I can't see. It's dark. It's too bright on the lights, and who knows if that battery even has power. But okay, so your last 2 wires, continuity in your second position. I use that for lights. You could do whatever you want. You can make that, and that does, I believe that leaves continuity on the 2 positive wires, and you shouldn't have continuity on those 2 that we made negative in either of the on positions. You could put a radio on the second position or whatever you want, really, light bar. And then what? So there's a box down here. That's kind of everyone I've ever talked to thought that was an RPM limiter. I've always been under the impression RPM limiter. Poking around, figuring out how to get this to charge. Not really any info, but I just so happen to see that part is labeled oil sensor diode, something along those lines. There's a wire comes out of your block way down low. That'll be an oil sensor light, or oil sensor kill switch, or whatever. When it thinks you don't have oil, it'll kill your engine. So you just don't hook that one up. Make sure you got oil. That wire down low should be that one hanging there. You just cut that off or whatever. And then the box actually seems to be a diode. I measured it. I've always been under the impression it was an RPM limiter, but that's what everyone's always said. But seems like the parts list says it's a oil sensor diode. And so on to charging. Really not much info out there about this, but that's this wire right here. That goes to your charge coil, brown wire. And if you have a new engine, mine didn't have it, but you'll have a key switch here. Follow that brown wire inside your key switch. There's actually a diode in that line. You need that. So it runs from that brown, it runs out to a little button. In between that and that line there is a diode, so you need that. I've hooked that up before and let it sit here with positive on it. It starts smoking out of here, and I think I need another coil for that engine. But this one, I didn't have that diode, and I tested that box, seeing that said it was a diode. Looks like it is a diode, so I hooked it up to that box, because that's also a diode. So we'll see how that works. I haven't run it yet. The battery was dead and stuff, but it seemed to be charging. I pull start, it seemed to be putting out voltage, but my battery was real shit, so it's hard to tell. But it seemed to be putting out voltage. So and I didn't see it smoking or anything, so that's good. So the brown, I checked with the meter. I took that to the black on this box, and then there was a yellow on the box. Take that to your positive, and that should be a diode, or eliminate the box altogether, and if you have a new engine, you can use that diode that's in the line there. Should work the same, but basically run your charge coil there. It's one wire. You want to run that to positive with a diode. It's putting out AC voltage. You need a diode to switch it to DC voltage, basically. It's basically a regulator, a diode, switching from AC to DC. And I believe if you have it wired to always be hot, I think that's why I started smoking. I was coming backwards, doing something. So it's pretty simple. Gravity feed fuel. Oh, when I new carb on here, it was really hard to get it to idle and your choke and everything. I hooked the choke up like that, just hole through the cable choke, holding it there, which works okay. But this one is actually so nice, I've never have to use the choke, which is a huge deal on a 420. I actually bought a jet kit, tried every single jet going through. I feel like it wanted a little more. I went through every one, see how it run. Didn't really like any of them. Before I tried that, I drilled one out, and it seemed to be a little too much. I went through every one of those jets, didn't really like them. I was gonna switch. I ordered a different style performance carb that it's more the four-wheeler style. It's got the throttle, it slides up like this, and it goes into there. It's got a bracket for your choke, which is really nice. Super nice for your cables. Ease of using cables there. You don't have to do something like this. But this one actually idles way better and things. And I really don't know what jet I used. I'm guessing it seemed like every one of those numbered ones in that jet kit was still there. So I'm guessing I put the drilled one back in and it was fine. And now it runs pretty perfect. We had a customer come in with a 420 Predator he just put in, and it was running like shit. Someone else was working on it, but I'm like, you want to borrow some of my jets? And we were testing out different jets in there, and it seemed like in that one it wanted a little more also. I think they ended up giving up and getting a different carb. I think right before we drilled out, like we checked the holes in each of the jets, and I think it went up to like a 46, and we checked which drill bit was slightly bigger than that, and then we did a couple right there. We started with the high one, and then we were working our way back, and then they gave up and they were getting mad we were taking too long. And but I think like one spot above the 46 would have been nice maybe, but they gave up. Whatever, wasn't my cart, wasn't working on it, wasn't, not the owner. So but I feel like we're right there. But whatever. So no, I mean, these are designed more for power washers and things, so, which is really annoying because you gotta choke it every time you start it, even when it's hot, it seems, most of the time. So keep that in mind, it's really annoying. But this one, super cold, I can fire it right up, and it, like literally I turned key on, nothing, with a pole yesterday, and it worked. I'm sure I'll go to start it right now and it'll be a dead battery and it won't pull right, and I'll be trying to pull it, look like an idiot. But this thing starts super great. I have a couple videos of it start, and I'll show you. I think I'll put it in here. Cold, fires right up if it doesn't work here. But yeah, I think that's about it. Your brakes are regular. I was like, you can get these lift kits for like $79. Lift kit. I got these wheels, actually came on this card. I got for like $300 or something, 400, $500, something like that. I swapped that whole drivetrain to something else, but yeah, pretty standard. So if you're trying to get into building some carts, definitely try to get yourself a TXT, because I think that's a great starting point. You're going to run into a lot more issues on other things, club cars and things. You have nice space, diffs work. I don't know if I specified, this is the older diff. I think I pointed that out, which is over there. Your newer style diff has your clutch over here, but it does turn the same way as this one. It's just on the other side. But then note, your exhaust will be over here. You're gonna have to adapt things different ways, so keep that in mind. But clutch over here does still work. If you're not sure, you can, typically your golf carts, that's forward, that's reverse. So put it in forward, turn your clutch clockwise. Does it turn? Does it go straight? Does it go forward? Or does it go in reverse? Your clockwise at your clutch is usually what engines want. So if you turn it clockwise or counterclockwise and it goes forward, then you're probably good. Most diffs, I believe, are going to go the better way. I don't know why club car decided to use this weirdest engine in the world that goes clockwise. You can't replace it. Check out my other video if you happen to be in that situation. I showed what I did there. Same way built, but I have mounted different engines, different diffs, and I ended up going with the diff backwards. Is the best way, with a 420 torque converter with a chain. You can check that out if you're curious. But yeah, this battery might be dead, I don't know, we'll see. But cold. Haven't run it all day. Yeah, battery's dead. I'm gonna pull it. One hand, no choke. Well, I do a lot of builds, and maybe subscribe if you want me to keep doing this stuff. I'm just kind of do it on my own. Thought it'd be kind of interesting for someone, especially the stuff with wiring, because stuff is not very clear out there, it seems, when I'm trying to research things. So I like to kind of put it out there with it a little more explained. Hopefully that helps. And then put Brown's coil out. Alright. I had a bad connection on the clamps at the battery terminals.